So, welcome to A Pint at the Miller's with me, Josh Hodgson. I am joined this evening by Chairman Mick Garton, Schools Partnership Liaison Officer Julian, and Dave, the Strategic Development Officer here at Carlton Town. So this is a pilot, so any feedback in advance would be very much appreciated. But the aim is to talk everything Carlton, non-league, Midlands, cover a bit of everything really. So it would be rude not to dive right in. But first, Mick is here for a meeting, so we'll get some words before he has to disappear. So Mick, you're here for a meeting regarding the split in the league at the end of the season amongst Step 3 and Step 4. I'm not sure if you want to touch on that or just your thoughts of the season so far and Carlton backlog of games going forward.
Yeah, there's a meeting being called for this evening. Basically, the early indications are that the FA have sent out this sort of map of the areas. Our management have looked at it, the committee, and there's some real concerns. So we're having a meeting tonight. Our major concern is that we get left in a situation where we've got massive travel situations, like going up to the likes of South Shields and Whitby and places like that. We genuinely thought when this came into play that the scenario would be less travelling, and that well may be the case if we end up in the Midlands section or the section that's. But at the moment it appears we're falling into the northern section, and it's a bit of an unknown quantity at the moment. But there is a real concern among people at the club, certainly the management. The president's coming down tonight, and we have been trying to get some clarity over the last 24 hours because it doesn't tell you a great deal. But obviously, with the major concerns for us is the travelling. If the travelling gets increased, if we are having to go down and play clubs many miles away from here, we'll get very few away fans down here. I think you're well aware that finances are tight here anyway. So there are some real concerns. I can't tell you much more than that at the moment because obviously I've not been to the meeting yet, but I do know that the information that we've got today, there are, like I say, some real concerns of the way this is going to go and where we're actually positioned in all this. You asked me about the season so far. I've got to say that it's been a nice follow-on from winning the Senior Cup last season. We started well, we had a little bit of a blip, we got a little bit of momentum, and I think since we obviously had the defeat against Basford on Boxing Day, which was a little bit of payback, I suppose, from the Senior Cup game. But since then, actually, we've done really well. I think our away form's picked up. We've been on a good run of form, and I think you've seen at the end of the day, the only reason we've not climbed the table is because of the backlog of fixtures, because the backlog of fixtures is horrendous. We've had a couple of games cancelled where we genuinely felt they should go ahead, and the referee made a different decision, one in particular I know we were very frustrated with. The problem with the backlog, and I know you've mentioned it, Josh, in one or two articles you've done for the club on the website, the programme and that, but the problem is we've only played one home game since the 23rd of December. The problem with that is that you've got no gate income, you've got no bar takings coming in, you've got no the programme sales, the shop sales, the raffle. You've got absolutely no income coming in, and when a game gets cancelled on the day, i.e. the referee inspection, you've still got staff to payments to find. You've got referees still take their half their fee plus their expenses. And in the case of Spalding, there was obviously some travel expenses as well, which was quite a considerable amount. So, and all that on the back of no income. So it's not been good. Last week we then get the snow, which means not only do we not have the match day income, we also lose all our 3G income because the bookings that we've got down here for the whole week pretty much were cancelled. So it's been horrendous. It really has, and one or two of us basically are just keeping things running, paying the bills paying the bills ourselves and covering things at the moment, but it is very, very difficult, and hopefully we're coming out of that now and we can get some football in. But overall, I'm pleased with the way the season's going. I think at the end of the day, we've definitely been an improvement on last season. There's been one or two players go where I've probably been a little bit disappointed to see them go. The likes of Danny Gordon, the centre half obviously went earlier in the season. Kyle, I thought he'd have a, he might have a good future with us, but at the same time, Wayne can only put 12 people, 11 people on the pitch. But having said that, the lads he's signed, he's made some quality signings, so the proof's in the pudding and the results are good. So at the end of the day, at the moment, you can only judge on performance and results, and at the moment we're certainly in the positive, as I say, particularly with our away form, which has been really good. So I'm fairly optimistic. It's going to be difficult over the next few weeks, guys, because the number of games we're going to be playing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and I can tell you that we are in talks with Mansfield Town at the moment about bringing one, possibly two players in on loan, because we're just conscious we might not have enough bodies within the club to get through the fixtures. We pick up one or two injuries, one or two late night games with trips away, which obviously puts you in a situation where you might have players that can't get, and having a 14 to travel is going to be a challenge over the next few games. So we're looking at that tonight, and Wayne is in talks at the moment with Mansfield, and hopefully we're going to try and bring a couple of players in just to bolster numbers. Obviously players that Wayne will be aware of and know that are going to bring something to the equation. But it's going to be an interesting 8 weeks. The next 8 weeks are going to be very interesting, because I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. Hopefully we'll carry on the level of performance, but I think it's fair to say there'll probably be one or two tricky results in there as well, given the number of games we're going to play.
Guys, what are your aspirations for the rest of the season and the season so far? How do you think the backlog will affect us?
I think it's difficult to say, to be honest, because of the backlog of games we've got. And it isn't just the backlog we've got, there's other teams as well. So it's even hard to get any sense of what the pecking order in the league is, because there's a real disparity. I suppose the one thing that I would definitely put nailed on money on is Baseford are going to go up. But beyond that, it's quite difficult to tell. And as Mick quite rightly said, it's difficult when you've got back-to-back fixtures. It's not just the impact it has on the football in terms of Wayne motivating the team, people being available to play. It's the impact it has commercially as well, because midweek games, you are never ever going to get the same sort of gate as you get on a traditional Saturday match. And therefore that's going to have an impact, and it's an impact on the pocket, to be fair, because for a lot of our fans to suddenly have to find money to come to 3 games a week, which we're going to have to do some weeks to get all the fixtures in, that all has just a general impact on all of us. I think without any shadow of a doubt, all of us just want to see a bit of football, and at the moment it's a bit of a struggle, and let's hope if we can get a bit of momentum going, we'll see us rise through the table. The reality is, if we win every game we've got the backlog of, we'd be up in 7th place. And none of us would be feeling any way like we do at the moment. We just need to get a bit of momentum going, don't we?
Julian, obviously you watched the games of last season, and like Dave says, there's a bit of, it's hard to tell where we actually sit in the table with the sheer difference in games. How would you compare the Carlton of this year to the Carlton of last year, where we ended up in a bit of a relegation battle, managed to stay clear? Where would you rate us in the table on the basis of that in comparison to that?
Well, on a positive note, I've been coming down here 3 or 4 seasons. This is the highest we've ever been in my. I didn't see the glory years of Tommy Buckbanks and all that kind of stuff. So this is brilliant from our point of view. I've been looking really with the backlog, as Dave said. I think we played 25 games, something like that. I think I would hopefully, from a sports point of view, looking to finish mid-table as a realistic aim.
And I think that's a.
Seventh is probably a bit too much. I know we've got all those games in hand, but the backlog, injuries, that kind of thing. Hopefully we'll get a couple of players in from Mansfield. So I'd be looking at trying to finish in the middle of the table, which is certainly with the squad. I certainly think is achievable.
Absolutely. I think that's very realistic.
What's the change in the squad then? Because obviously, like Mick touched on, there's been players leave. For instance, Danny Gordon, who was very close to our hearts and a bit of a Carlton legend. We've had big figures like Romain, last season left captain at the club. There's been a real range of players leave who I'm pretty sure all of us once upon a time would have called mainstays. So, like, what's the change to the squad this season?
I'll just come in there, Josh. What you find is, and this is something I've obviously got used to as a chairman. But over the course of a season, we mentioned Danny, obviously Lawrence, who was instrumental in us winning the cup as well. We mentioned 2 or 3 players. What you find as a chairman of a football club, that whatever happens over the course of a season, things will change. It happens at every club. It's happened every single year I've been here. There's been players leave who I've been disappointed to see go. There's players come in, and sometimes the players that come in you think he's not as good as the one that's gone, and other times they're better. And it's a mix. And during the course of a season, all you can hope and all you can trust is that your manager gets it right, that if he lets a player go, and what you've always got to bear in mind as well, from my point of view and from the supporters' point of view, we don't see what goes on behind the scenes, so we don't see the training, we don't see the dressing room atmosphere, we don't see the reaction if somebody's left out the side, and there's lots of little things that come into a manager's mind that we don't see, and that happens at every football club, and sometimes a supporter will see somebody go and they'll, why is he gone? And at the end of the day, and they'll come to me. People ask me why, and I'm not always privy. If I'm really concerned about it, I'll go to Wayne and I'll say why is that decision, and Wayne will explain it to me. I think the proof of the pudding is the players you bring in to replace them, and if you feel that you're moving forward and that the players that come in are better, and I think nobody's going to. I think at the moment we've got a particularly strong forward line. I think nobody would question Ben Hutchinson, for example. He obviously was at Basford, but well before he had a time at Basford, I think he's played for the likes of Celtic. I mean, and at the end of the day, you can see his quality on the pitch. And we've got 1 or 2 younger players coming in now as well. But the point is, it is always about, if you make a decision as a manager, and Wayne made some big decisions last season when we were struggling, and Romain, again, he was a popular lad at the club, but Wayne let Romain go, and there was a couple of other lads around that time. He thought he needed to make a change, and I think a couple of coaching staff went as well for various reasons, and at the end of the day he made those changes, and then after he'd made those changes, over a period of time there was an improvement, and we finished the season well. We won the cup. This season again, we pretty much kept the cup winning side together, and I think you'll find we started the season well. There was a dip, and I think Wayne obviously felt that possibly he needed to make 1 or 2 changes, and that basically again is what he's done. He's made 1 or 2 changes, and the 11 that you're seeing on the pitch at the moment is 3 or 4 players that and the proof is always in the pudding.
I'd agree with you. I have to say, I mean, I think this season, I think the gaffer's made some big decisions and he stood by them. I think that I sense that we are far more together as a team and as a squad. I think Wayne seems to be working on this basis that it's a team. There isn't one individual that's bigger than the sum of the team. And whilst I wouldn't want to infer anything about any of the lads that's gone, because there's some genuinely good players we've moved on this season, I think what I've seen this season, as opposed to the bits of previous seasons I've watched, I think they seem to be together as a unit. There genuinely seems to be a camaraderie amongst the lads. They seem to be playing for each other, and you get some inconsistency, and as fans we have a goddamn big moan about it because you're there and you get involved because it's a passion. But actually consistently I think it's improved on last season, as Julian said.
Well, Julian said it's the highest he's seen his finish. Obviously, we had the success of the Tommy, and we were second under Les.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
just before my time, mate.
Before your time.
What I've noticed though, the players that have gone have generally not gone upwards, have they? If you look at Lawrence went to Quorn.
Yeah.
I saw Josh Ray play the other week at South Normanton.
Yeah.
And I saw Romain play at South Normanton the other week for Long. So I know Danny stayed at the same level. Is it Loughborough?
Loughborough, yeah.
So generally, the players that do leave don't stay at this level. So that's an interesting decision.
Yeah.
That manager is backed up with that evidence, I would suggest.
I'd agree.
So welcome back to A Pint at the Millers. Mick's had to step out for his meeting, but I'm still here with Julian and Dave, and talking about Carlton season so far. We've obviously been through the real weird break that we're having at the minute, but we have played a lot of football prior to that, and there's a lot of games that stand out this season. For me, I thought our away win at Peterborough Sports was impressive.
5-1.
Yeah,
5-1.
a range, not a single scorer was the same. It was a real team performance. It looked like everyone was really enjoying their football this season. Are there any moments or games that stand out for you in particular this season?
I particularly enjoyed the Frickley Athletic game earlier on the season in October, where it was a 2-2 draw. Even though we didn't win, the reason we didn't win was the Frickley goalkeeper, former Polish under-21 international, played out of his skin, who has had unfortunate business now that he's been ruled out of the season. They're helping him out, paying his wages and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a great game. Again, the Peterborough game as well. I might talk about the game went to Newcastle with Alan. I think that was 1-0. Oh, what a place that was. But we better not say too much about that. The coldest place on earth on a Tuesday night. But we had lots and lots of different things. Dave?
I think in terms of league games, I thought the game we played here against Bedworth was good, because we were 1-0 down, and it looked like heads had gone down, and we came back. Danny got a goal, and then I can't remember who scored the second goal for us, but we won that 2-1, and that had given us 10 points in 5 games. So there really felt like there was a level of optimism around the club, as you've said earlier, in terms of how we started.
I think the Sheffield game was the first game of the season, Jeff, was it?
Yeah.
Sheffield?
Yeah.
We actually won the first game of the season, which quite unusual, I think. So that
it hasn't happened in a while.
got us off to the start, and everybody's thinking, and earlier on in the season I thought, oh, we're looking up here for the playoffs possibly here. But
I have to say, if I was really to pick a game of the season, and there's a bit of a conflict here because I also have a vested interest in Notts County, was actually the pre-season friendly against Notts, because when I consider in the build-up to that match, Notts had also got a pre-season friendly against York City that day, and the plan was for all of the first team to go up to York and the second tier team to come and play. And at the last moment on the Friday evening there was a change of heart, and the majority of the first team ended up coming here, which, to be fair, had I been a representative of York, I'd have been pretty upset by that. But we ended up getting the first team down here, and we got a 1-1 draw, and actually Notts only got a goal off the back of a penalty scored by John Stead. So to be fair, I actually thought that was a really, really good game to start the season, because it was definitely not a sort of a demonstration, sort of trial game. It was a genuine, well fought game of football against a really good team, and Wayne had got the guys fired up, and we gave a really, really good account of ourselves. And I sometimes think some of those games, particularly when it's a sincere game and it's not you're playing against a big name, but in reality it's a third or fourth tier squad that turn up, I think that's a real good platform to build on, and I think that was demonstrated in how well we started the season.
Yeah, I also think the defence has improved this season.
Absolutely.
We've only conceded around 30 goals to this point, so that's, in some other seasons we've been leaking for fun.
Yeah.
Well, this year they've really tightened up, and even Jake Carlisle's gone now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
To, I think it was Belper, wasn't it? We saw him play the other day.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a big, and we've never had the riches of strikers we've had this season who've come and gone.
Yeah.
Wilfred's gone, and people had great games at certain points, gone back to France. So I think those areas of the team have certainly improved this year.
Absolutely.
One of the moments of the season for me, to be fair, it's actually kind of double-barreled because it's a negative. At the same time, I felt the Baseford game on Boxing Day was a big turning point for us. Bear in mind, we put in some amazing performances. 4-1 at home in our first home game since Christmas. Absolutely incredible. And the players seem to hold their own ownership of everything going on in that game. They all stood out individually and as well as a team. And so that leads me on to my next question of, is there a player, without obviously providing negativity on the other lads in the team, that's particularly stood out for you this season?
Well, I think Kieran Walker has marshalled the defence tremendously well. not that they didn't in previous years, but we just seem more solid. And captain of the team, captain of the club, etc. I think he's marshalled that defence well. I personally like Danny Elliott in the middle of the park, who I think always puts in 100%. And certainly Ben Hutchinson has certainly made a difference to the forward line. You know, that goal against Belper, we were right behind it, bent it like a banana. So you know, you've got a spine. I think it's the spine of the team.
Yeah.
In lots of ways.
It's interesting because I'd come at it. I think it's a really good point you make, Julian. But I'd come at it from a different angle because for me, and it'll come. There's no surprise to Josh and Wayne and Mick and others because I'm always waxing lyrical about this lad. But I think Momoki Akuna has been outstanding for me. I don't think it matters whether that lad comes on in the first minute or the 81st minute. He has an impact on that game.
He's added that extra power.
Absolutely.
Burst through defences, they can't handle him at this level.
I know Wayne saw him as an impact player, and I said, well, why can't we enjoy the impact from the first minute? And since he started playing him for a full match, we've actually seen that performance sustained. It's not a guy who can only hold a performance together for 15-20 minutes. He's held a performance together for the full 90. He never stands out of a tackle. He's good on both feet. You never ever see any attitude from him, sort of picking up on some of the themes we talked about earlier about that team and attitude and being part of a squad. He's definitely committed to the team. I mean, the lad lives over in Derby and he trains to Nottingham, and then one of the players picks him up from Nottingham to get here. I know the gaffer said he's a good all-round honest lad. I think he has been outstanding, and it must have been frustrating for him at times because there's been games when, you know, we maybe haven't started so well and he's been sat on the bench, and we've seen frustration from some of the players when they've been subbed off, and he actually he's sat there and he's kept his counsel on the bench until his opportunities come, and when he's come on that pitch he's really made a difference in my opinion.
I think you also look at the fullbacks. I think Darryl Lucas is a bit like Gary Neville to me.
Yeah.
The fact that when he doesn't play, you miss it.
Yeah.
You don't realise how good he is until he's not playing in some ways, and that's not slating the other players that have come in. And also I think special mention to Fletch. For
300 games
appearance at this level in one club.
But it's interesting though, because that's the challenge, isn't it? Because you almost then start just working your way through the squad. Because I mean, I think Reece has had some brilliant games. I think Steggs in goal, to be fair, you know, he's had some really, really good games, and there's been time when the scoreline would not necessarily have reflected that. But that's been more, just as much about the defence as it has been Jack. And I think he's had some really, really good games this season as well. And it must be frustrating for all the lads, because it's been stop, start, which I know is why Wayne arranged that friendly against Kettering, because he was just concerned that the lads hadn't been getting match football. And so actually they've turned in some good performances in some very difficult circumstances.
A lot of managers obviously talk about competition for places motivating, and I think that's the perfect, you know, statement for the squad at the minute. We've got strong players in every position who could equally do as good a job as each other. For me, I think Kylan Mitchell has done a brilliant job coming in. Obviously, I find it hard to believe that many people wouldn't put an argument for Mellors Blair last season being one of our more creative and better players. Obviously in the final creating some wonderful chances which resulted in a win. And we had to replace those beats somehow. And I know it's a problem, for instance, Notts County suffer when they bring in these amazing loan players and then, you know, fail to replace them because you're always living up to such high standards. And I must say, Carlton stepping into those boots of the previous season, I think he's really showed that he can fill that space. And obviously, Wilson's returned and is finding his way back at this level.
And Hoots as well. When you know, Hoots definitely brings another dimension to the squad when we're playing. You know, he can lighten up a game. He's got a great personality, rouses the lads up, you know. But as I say, Julian, the risk is you end up just going through the whole squad, which actually I think is probably reflective of all of the things we've talked about, is actually what we've got this season, albeit I can't talk with a pedigree of lots of previous seasons of watching the Millers, but...
Well, for me, that's now going to draw our section on Carlton to a close, and we'll move wider in the next section into Midlands football. Look forward to seeing you then. Thank you. So, welcome back to A Pint at the Millers, and realistically, if you haven't got one already, go get one yourselves, because you're about to get stuck into some tasty topics. We're rejoined again by Chairman Mick Garton. Obviously Julian and Dave are still here. We're going to touch on local football now. not at our level, but more the teams we all support. So, Notts County, under Kevin Nolan, are having a season literally opposite to what they were last year, but have hit a bit of patchy form at the minute, have fallen back into the playoffs, having been second in the league for most of the season. What do you, Dave, make of County season so far, and obviously the current situation they're in?
I think we're in a good position, to be honest. I mean, I think generally East Midlands football's in a good position. I think that if you listen to County's chairman talk, he said their aspiration was for this season to be one of stabilising and consolidating. On that basis, mission accomplished, season over. I think they've had a great season based on that being the strategy, which is what Alan's been very open about. However, inevitably, because we started the season so well and we were in automatic promotion places for a while, I'm sure there's a slightly bitter taste now that we're in the playoffs, and inevitably there will be a concern that we finish in the playoffs and fall at the last hurdle. And I think, irrespective of the business plan, that'll be a big disappointment for the chairman, for the manager, for the team and for the fans. But I think it's been a good season, and I think that Kevin Nolan, as the manager, has more than proved his credibility as a good manager with a capacity to go on to be a great manager. I think he is able to attract some really good players of a class unknown of at Notts, which I think is also a reflection of the respect people hold him in, and players that really you would not normally expect to be seen in, playing at a League Two standard. So I think certainly Kevin Nolan has done himself a lot of favours this season, and to be fair, long may it live under the stewardship of Alan Hardy, because I think Alan has made some significant changes to the football club which were all on the positives. And I think having been a long-standing Notts fan, you're always a little bit concerned about how long these things can be perpetuated, and to be fair to Alan, it just seems to go from strength to strength. The general energy and atmosphere around the club, some of the people that I know that work within the team at Notts, you just don't hear a bad word about the place. Everybody seems to be on board with Team Notts County, and it's going on to bigger and better things. And it's, as someone who has a great interest in Notts, it's fantastic.
It's from Forest, who also had a similar season to us last season. Finished at the bottom of the table, relegation battles, managed to avoid it. And this season started really promising. Results started to fluctuate a little bit. Obviously, fantastic win against Arsenal, and then fluctuated a bit. And have recently got 2 good wins under the belt. Mick, obviously, I know you do some business with Forest and have been a lifelong supporter. What's your opinion with Forest at the minute and under the new leadership of Karanka?
I thought the first 2 games where he took over, we were shocking. I've got to be honest, we were absolutely shocking. I don't know whether that was because 1 or 2 players perhaps knew that they were, 1 or 2 players knew that they were going to be moved on or out on loan, or there was going to be changes. I can't quite put my finger on it, but it was bad. Having said that, the performances over the last few games has been obviously the fantastic win at QPR. Reading, they played very well second half and got something back. One of the big problems with Forest this season has been the fact that when they've got a goal behind, they've not been able to come back, and that was both under Warburton and later under the new manager. They go a goal behind and it was almost, that's it, they've got to score first. And I think one of the main criticisms of Mark Warburton, and under Mark Warburton we did play some good football at times, it was really refreshing to watch. But one of the big criticisms was the fact that there didn't seem a plan B when things weren't working out, and that, at the end of the day, if Forest went to go behind, they were going to lose. Now, too early to judge the new manager, of course. He's only been in there. All you would say is that he started badly, but the Burton result, although it was the bottom side, I understand Forest were down to 10 men for a large part of that game, so a draw was a good result. Reading was better second half, and on Saturday, not as convincing as the QPR win, but they got the job done. So
2-1 wins.
I think Forest. Yeah, I think Forest will be mid-table this year, and I think you're due to manager next season. 1 or 2 of the new signings look impressive. The new centre half looks impressive. I think they needed a leader in the middle of the park, and perhaps in Ben Watson they've got that. So at the end of the day, like I say, it's too early to judge at the moment, but it's sort of from being very downbeat after the 2 home defeats, which were shocking, and now with the 2 wins on the bounce and 2 draws, you certainly feel a little bit more optimistic.
No, I'd agree, Mick. I mean, I think mid-table's probably where they'll end up. I think you've got to wait and see what Karanka does to develop the team and the individuals. You know my opinion, because I've shared it with you a number of times. I think it's a shame they didn't give Gary Brazil the squad till the end of the season. I think he did a great job. I think he'd got the young lads behind him. They were playing for him, because actually he's the guy who nurtured a lot of those players when they were younger. And I was just concerned that with the changing manager, they might lose a little bit of the momentum. And I think it's difficult to establish whether that's because Brazil stood to one side or whether it's just Karanka finding his feet. But I don't think mid-table would be a bad place for Forest to finish.
What about Notts County and Mansfield there? Notts County and Mansfield in a playoff final, how good would that be?
Well, it wouldn't be to anybody's surprise the way the table's going at the moment, is it? I think I've got this funny... Well, prior to Evans going, I thought Mansfield were on the rise to get into automatic promotion. So that might be... put a bit of a nail in the coffin.
Only 2 points off at the minute.
Yeah. You know, Evans was an interesting character, wasn't he? Larger than life. I've seen Mansfield play twice against my beloved Morecambe team, of course, and they've won both games in the last minute. So that tells me that they've got the engine. They keep going for 90 minutes. But a lot of Mansfield supporters have been telling me, having lived near there, that they play for about 25 minutes in each game. And it tends to be the last 25 minutes. The owners at Mansfield gave him absolutely everything.
Yeah, that's...
money, players... And maybe that
I feel
needs to show a bit of loyalty.
I feel for the Radfords in some respect, because they have. I agree with you, Julian. They've given him a lot of support. They've given him the funds he needed when he wanted to bring players in, and they must be somewhat disappointed because Mansfield are flying high at the moment, and I think they do stand a very good chance in the playoffs because of the way they play. We've seen them play a few times this season, and I've been impressed with the way they play. So I feel for them to some degree. Very difficult to tell what impact those changes are going to have, because Mansfield and Peterborough didn't play at the weekend. So it's only when you see both of them performing.
I suppose they've appointed a manager in Flitcroft who knows the league very well.
Yeah.
He's got Swindon into around the playoff positions, I think, so he knows what it takes. He took Bury up.
Yeah.
So he knows what it takes. So that might turn out to be a very shrewd appointment at Mansfield.
But I have to say, I certainly think Forest will finish mid-table. I have no doubt that County and Mansfield will be in the playoffs. Whether they end up playing each other in the final or not, I mean, that would just be poetic for that to happen. But I also, to be fair to Steve Evans, because he has a hell of a footballing pedigree, irrespective of you know what you might think of him as an individual, and we all have different views of the different.
What's your view, Dave?
Personalities. But I think he'll get Peterborough up.
Well, they're certainly around the promotion area.
They are.
They're 3 points off.
Are they? So,
8th place.
You know, McCanton is the chairman now, and he's just sold a bit of the club.
They've just sold a bit of the club, so they've got
a bit of impetus
in.
So it might, with Evans going in there, it might just get them over the line.
I think so. I think
Blackburn, Wigan, Shrewsbury too far ahead for automatic. So you could see Peterborough getting into the promotion frame in terms of the playoffs, and also I think certainly Notts and Mansfield. I agree that Forest, you know, I'm going for about 16 for Forest.
We talk managerial instability, and this is where we jump leagues, you know, straight to the top. The Premier League has had one of its oddest seasons for managerial replacements, specifically down the bottom of the table. Obviously, Everton, a side that had spent their entire war chest during the summer, ended up replacing their manager, you know, less than 3 months into the season. Crystal Palace gave Frank de Boer just 4 games. Leicester, you know, 2 years ago were champions of the Premier League, and all of a sudden, you know, they're hiring Southampton's ex-manager. Moyes comes in at West Ham. There's countless changes down the bottom of that table. And the relegation battle in the Premier League has become one of intrigue this season because of the sheer, you know, space between those top 6 and that contingent pack that stretches all the way up to upper mid-table could still get relegated.
I think you're looking at Brighton in 10th, 34 points looking at this table. 7 points. Probably might be a point or two ahead, but you know, 34 is it safe from 27. 7 points, not many games to go. Certainly Bournemouth 33, and then you've got to really look at Swansea down in 13th, from 30 down 3 points. So you've got what? Ooh, I don't know, 3, 6, about 8 teams. Because I think personally West Bromwich have gone.
Yeah,
I can't see them climbing out of that now. But you've got, you know, 6, 7 teams. Any of those could actually go down. You know, Crystal Palace, I thought, had got out of it. Now they're suddenly back in it because Roy Hodgson made, whatever you think of him, he made a big difference to start with.
Yeah.
You know, Stoke changed their manager again, didn't they? They got the chap in from Wolves. Can't remember his name. We'll think of his name later. Paul Lambert. There you go. Paul Lambert. You know, a bit of a journeyman manager. Is he a Premier League pedigree? Really, I don't know. So Stoke, they're not really playing good football, are they? They're huffing and puffing. And
I think with the bottom of the Premier League at the moment, there's, without doing all the detailed analysis of every team, you've got to look at the teams that have got momentum versus the teams that haven't, and you've also got to look at the remaining fixtures each of those teams have got, and then really I think you're just taking potluck. You know, I think West Brom, I think Stoke, and I actually think Southampton will be the teams that will go down. Swansea seem to have momentum under the new manager.
They've done tremendously well.
Palace will stay up, albeit it'll be interesting to see how they get on tonight against Man United. But I think it'll be West Brom, Stoke and Southampton that will go down. But I think you could pick from any, as you say, Julian, because it's amazing how far up the table people could still be pulled down into that relegation zone.
Yeah, I just wonder if Newcastle will get pulled into it.
Thank you. That's a really good point to make. So I was watching Soccer Saturday recently, and every single pundit predicted Newcastle to lose their match, which they proceeded to do. But none of them predicted them for relegation, and yet Newcastle are a side that were meant to be bought out during the winter period, never got bought out. Benitez was complaining about incoming players, and none of that happened, but players went outgoing. You know, Mitrovic, who was supposed to be their saviour 2 years ago, has ended up going on loan to Fulham in the Championship.
From where I stand, I mean, I think West Brom are gone. I think it's just gone downhill for them since obviously the Barcelona incident, the Taxigate situation. That's one of them where if you're top of the league and you're winning games, it very quickly gets buried. But when you're bottom of the league and that sort of thing happens, then and obviously they've not won a game since, and they got knocked out of the FA Cup. I think West Brom are gone. I'll be very surprised if Alan Pardew can turn that around. I think the rest of the table, I look at the table, there's 2 clubs there that interest me in the fact that when they appointed the new manager, they had a massive rise up the table. They had a few good results, and they always say when a new manager comes in, you get that motivation, that bump as it were. But the 2 clubs that I refer to, one of them's Crystal Palace, who are now back in the bottom 3, and the second one is West Ham. And I would have a real concern if I was a West Ham fan or a Crystal Palace fan at the moment. And I think the other one who may be in trouble, Southampton. I've looked at 1 or 2 of the games they've got coming up. They've got a hell of a run in. They could be in trouble. So my gut feeling is I think Stoke will just claw out of it. I think Newcastle, I agree with you Dave, I think Newcastle will stay up. I think Benitez, and I'll take the point about he's probably not been used to fighting relegation battles, but I think he's just got enough. I think Huddersfield have got a fantastic manager in Wagner, and I think he's, on his personality alone, I think he'll keep them up. And I thought Swansea might be in trouble with the number of injuries they've got, but they've got fantastic home record. Fantastic home record. Sam's struggling a bit at Everton at the minute, but you just feel they've got too many points in the bag. So I think realistically you could be looking at West Brom going down, and then it could be between, for the other 2 places, actually West Ham, Crystal Palace and Southampton.
The biggest problem you're looking is the goals conceded. West Ham have conceded the most in the whole league, and that could bite them. 54 goals, and also Huddersfield 50. So, but you know, but West Ham have got 36, so they can score as well. So. It should be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we would say is it's more interesting than the top, because
the
top's finished.
Top's done. It's done. As far as I'm concerned, Man City have won that.
Yeah.
Liverpool, Man United will definitely be in there, and I think probably Tottenham.
I agree.
And I think there's a lot of controversy
That's my
around the
top
Chelsea and Arsenal managers at the moment, the fans and everything.
I don't know if
else.
you watched the game yesterday, whereas Manchester City and Chelsea, well, Chelsea just didn't look interested.
No.
I couldn't believe it.
I'll be very surprised if the Chelsea manager is there much longer.
Well, he might be, I think he's doing his best to get the side.
And Arsenal Brighton, to be honest, because Brighton totally dominated that game and could have just as easily won 3 or 4-1.
It's a shame Hodgson didn't go out last season after he won the FA Cup, and because that man has achieved so much, and and instead he's now getting, just looking in from the outside, it's almost getting handed out of the club. And it's sad the way it's finished. I just hope for him that they can go on and win the Europa League. I can't see it.
No.
I just hope they can, and then he does go out with some dignity. But at the moment, it's volatile and toxic around that.
I think Daniel Taylor wrote an article in the Observer yesterday, because I think he's a Nottingham Forest supporter.
Yes, he is.
I think he wrote something about maybe if Wenger announced he's going to retire or give in or whatever you want to call it. He might get some of that kudos back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than waiting to drift away.
Yeah, no, Daniel's a very good journalist, and was down here actually for a do recently. So yeah, he talks a lot of sense.
It was interesting listening to Thierry Henry on the TV yesterday before the Arsenal-Brighton game, and he was saying that, you know, in the same way as you always expect the manager will defend the players and will take a lot of the heat off the players, you equally get the senior players will normally try and take the heat off the manager, because you know they'll come out with the sound bites about, look, you know, no matter what the manager does, when we cross the white line, it's us who've got to turn in a result for him. He said, and yet you don't see any example of any sort of talisman on that pitch who are really taking the heat off the manager, who, you know, are trying to protect him, and who are really trying to energise the team when they're out there and they can see a game slipping away. Yeah. He said there just aren't any of them at all, and it was quite interesting actually, because when you then heard the post-match interviews and just reading some of the stuff in the press today, actually there were a number of the players who did nothing to defend the manager and were trying to draw him in.
One person that did come out
really
on Twitter, I think yesterday, was Czech, the goalkeeper, did apologise.
I saw that.
A couple of the goals which weren't too great. I think I saw the Brighton's second goal sort of went underneath.
Just gave the ball away, and
it was quite a poor goal, but they certainly deserved to win yesterday.
Oh, absolutely.
Arsene, Antonio, if you're watching, these are the opinions of my panel and not of the club. We'll join you very shortly with some talk about the events going on at the club and a more international and football conversation. As for now, thank you for watching the third part of Pint with the Millers. So, welcome back to A Pint at the Millers. We've obviously covered an incredible range of levels of football, but if we bring it back home to Carlton for a minute, while Mick's here, we had a bit of a disappointment this last week with the pool marathon being called off. It's very odd for a table inside a bar to be called off because of snow, but you know, that was the result of the weather. It's been rearranged, and we've also got a hell of a programme of events coming up, so just to spotlight those a bit, I'll pass over to you, Mick, if you want to chat through.
Yeah, the pool marathon situation was very simple. When the pool marathon's on, what happens is we get a lot of people come during the day, they play a game, they stick some money in the bucket, they'll have a couple of pints with us, and there's people in and out all day. And I think you last year came yourself, and you got a little bit involved, and potentially the weather was so bad on Friday that there was realistically, well, over the course of the back end of next week, and the ground here, we were under 6 inches of snow. And there was a real concern that if any more snow came, that we'd struggle to get taxis. People wouldn't come down and support the event, not because they didn't want to support it, they just wouldn't be able to get here. There was one guy who'd already said he couldn't make it in because he was travelling from quite a distance. We're doing it at the beginning of April on the 7th. We're actually going to do it on a Saturday when we're at home. And we're hoping that we're trying to get the game sponsored that day as well. We're in talks with somebody about possibly sponsoring the game as well, which will help get a few more bodies down. We've raised the figure we were trying to raise. We always go for the 1,000. We're going for 1.5 now, generally because obviously the financial situation has deteriorated over the last week, as I explained earlier. And hopefully with the fact that we've got more people here, we'll get more money in the bucket, and you know, this money will go directly into the club in terms of paying bills and that type of thing. I mean, again, an electric bill here for the month is £1,000. You know, that's still got to be paid. It's things like that that generally people don't see the water rates bill, you know, that's just been paid, that I think 500-600 quid, that type of thing, that you know, to run this complex is not cheap. The Alan Hill do, this is a little bit of Dave's remit here as well, because when Dave obviously took up the new job, it's a little bit different to what Brian's doing. Brian obviously is a commercial manager. He falls into the with Gasby about bringing money into the club for the running of the club, the overall budget of the club. What Dave's looking to do is bring extra money in over and above, and this particular do for the Alan Hill event is particularly for the car park. The car park's a mess. I'm not going to try and paper over it. It's not good. We have to drive around the outside when we come in. The potholes are not good. They're deep, and it's something that we've got to deal with. So that do will specifically be about the money, raising money for the car park. I'm trying to put sponsorship together so that everything raised that night will go straight into that fund. I'm working on that behind the scenes. We've nearly sold out. We've got a few tickets left, but not many. Dave, you've been good enough to take a table. And at the end of the day, hopefully that particular event will raise, I'm hoping to raise £5,000 on the night with the ticket sales and everything. If I can get everything sponsored, and that will be £5,000 that can go towards the car park and try and get it in some shape, because you have got to look after your infrastructure as well. It's not just about performances on the pitch, it's about having a complex that's fit for purpose, and at the moment our car park is not fit for purpose. So Alan Hill's been very good to come and give his services for free. Alan's a great speaker, he really is. He was there all through the Cloughie years, and he tells some fantastic stories.
Yeah.
He really is a good speaker. He's come and given his night up for free. The Real Madrid soccer clinic that you mentioned there, that's primarily been the work of Paul Whitby, who I understand will be on this programme in the future. Paul's put that together. That's a week-long soccer camp down here at the ground at the end of May in the school holidays. I think it's €230, which is about £210. It's the whole week. It's food. You're going to be the kids are going to be training with. It's open to girls and boys. And they're going to be training with coaches from Real Madrid. They're running this soccer camp all over Europe, and we're one of the clubs in the Northern Premier League that's going to be hosting it. So, as per the website, go on the website. The details are on there, and Paul Whitby's the man to to contact for that.
Yeah, he's definitely not cancelled with.
Not cancelled. Hopefully that'll be going. As I say, at the end of May, and that's a great thing and a bit of kudos for the club. So. You know, hopefully we'll get a few bodies down and we'll get people involved. The race day, we haven't got the tickets yet, but that is coming up in the middle of July. That's one of the greatest days the club has every year. Brings quite a bit of income in. I know you all attend it, and it is one of the most popular events in the calendar. I can exclusively reveal we've got Nottingham City Transport behind us again. Which is fantastic. That conversation has taken place. Nottingham City Transport will be our sponsors for the day. They're very big into community events, and the fact that this event is across this side of town. It's a partnership between ourselves and Southall Racecourse. The fact that they have buses that run into Southall, and Nottingham City Transport are really big on community, so they're going to be behind us again, which is great news. And that will be on the 15th of July. Tickets will be on sale shortly. Again, we'll make the announcement on the website, but hopefully we can do as well as we've done in previous years. And finally, the golf day. The golf day is Oakmere Park at the beginning of July. I think it's on the first Friday in July. Roger Smith's the man to contact for that. Teams, again, we've kept the price at 160 quid for a team of 4, which I think we've held that price now for God knows how many years. Roger Smith is the man to contact for that, again on the website. And all these events that we're holding, all the money goes back into the club. This is how we run the club. We've never had a grant, we've never had any money that comes in terms of, it's because of certain things that we've got, or certain particular thing that we've got in the lease, which will hopefully disappear, and I'll talk more about that at a future episode. That's one of the reasons Dave's been invited onto the board. But at the moment we are in a position where everything that the running costs of this club have to be funded by what we bring in terms of fundraising and donations. So all these events are for that purpose, Josh.
I think the other thing as well is it's worth saying, Mick, in terms of helping us this season and into next season in the day-to-day, is if anybody watching this has got any other ideas where they think we might be missing a trick in terms of raising additional funds for the football club, then please make contact with us and let us know, because we don't profess to be the experts in everything. We try to do everything we can for the football club, but if somebody's got a little nugget out there that they think might help raise some more funds for the club, then please let us know, because we'd be only too keen to consider it.
Yeah, good shout.
Thank you very much, because those events are really important to the club, and having attended the vast majority of them, they're absolutely class. I'm planning to bring a team to the golf day this year. Having not played but gone round with them was absolutely fantastic.
And you play golf, Josh? Are you a golfer?
Loosely. Whether it goes accurately in the direction I am is questionable. Race day I've been at for quite a while now. The dinners we have here are absolutely fantastic. I can never talk highly of them enough. And the pool marathon is just a good laugh for anyone that wants to come down. But I mean, the highlight there, unfortunately Paul was meant to be here tonight and hasn't made it on. We will have him on to advertise the Real Madrid event. Is at the end of the day, the Real Madrid event is just an incredible opportunity for the club, and just to be associated with a club of their stature is phenomenal. But talking of phenomenal stature, we're going to move on to the phenomenal stature of two big questions that are our crunch questions for this episode. And the first is quite topical. It's developed a lot in the narrative of the sport across the last week, which is VAR. It could be referring to several things, be it the Tottenham game, where many would call it a farce. But then, just shortly afterwards, to then be announced that they're using it at the World Cup. Two totally different perspectives on something that seems, pivotal to the future of football. I'll pose it first to you, Julian. What's your opinion on VR, and what role does it play in the game? Like, where does it fit?
Well, it seems to have been a total disaster from what I can see so far. If you look at other sports, it seems to work quite well. The similar system in cricket seems to work well. It fits in line with the game, being a slower game, I guess. In tennis, everybody wants to know whether it's in or out, so it works for that. And it seems to work quite well in both forms of rugby, doesn't it?
Yep.
In terms of football, I think it's, shall we say, they're teething problems, shall we say. So it may be that we need to use it more often. I don't think the referees or assistant VAR referees, whatever they call them, have really got the idea. And some of the referees are now just pointing for decisions to be made by somebody else. Isn't football a game that is fast flowing? So they've got to develop a system where the flow of the game keeps going as fast as it can.
But is that not what they're doing though? I have to say, I read a number of articles in the press about it, and there's a whole load of talk about the game was, the game was great as it was, and why do we need to make changes? But actually, if you look at how football's changed over the years, when I remember playing in leather football boots that were more like hobnail boots.
Play with that really big heavy ball.
Oh, that really big heavy ball, and well, that's clearly had its impact on my lucidity. But the reality is, over the years, there's been significant developments in the boots the players wear, in the balls they play with. There's developments in the sort of dietary programs they go through and the fitness programs. And yet actually, in technology, there's been very, very little development in technology whatsoever in terms of on the field. And then off the field, if you consider how things have moved forward from a media perspective, we've now got experts who are giving a view on a game from multiple angles, in slow motion, in ultra high definition 4K, and yet that man in the middle of the pitch has got to make a decision in a millisecond, and those decisions can cost millions of pounds. Some of those critical decisions can cost serious money, and therefore for me...
Isn't that the problem with football then, Dave?
Sorry?
Too much money.
Oh, perhaps, but nevertheless we are where we are, and therefore for me actually VAR is just levelling the playing field, because at the moment you've got all of these experts who sit analysing it and are critical of a referee's decision, and he's at a disadvantage because he doesn't have the same levels of technology. So for me, VAR is actually to some degree levelling the field, And the reality is, you take a panel of deemed experts in football who have access to all of this slow motion, and you'll still get some of them disagreeing about, was it a penalty,
It's the
wasn't
point I
it?
was going to make.
Yeah,
It's the point I
was it
gonna
a
make.
penalty, wasn't it a penalty? Even though they've slowed it down from all those different angles in Ultra 4K HD, and they disagree. So even when we've got VAR working a lot smoother than it is at the moment,
Do you
because
think we should use it for certain decisions? What decisions do you think it should be used for? Offsides, fouls, penalties?
I think-
Where does it stop?
there are guides around it at the moment.
Well,
isn't there?
that's the problem to me, Dave. It's not clear. Look, I'll just give you a couple of scenarios which I've seen recently. One scenario is when it came in. First of all, we were told it was to overturn clear and obvious mistakes.
Yeah.
Now you've had situations which have been on the telly, which everybody will have seen recently, where there's an offside where the flag goes up, and you might have a situation where the guy will look. The line will go across on Sky, say, and the guy looks fractionally offside, and then the VAR man will spot that the boot is slightly ahead of the stomach,
Yeah.
and then the decision can. Well, surely that's not what it was brought in for. So that's one point.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the second point I was made is how far do you actually go back? Is it the actual, if it's a penalty or not a penalty? Is it that, or if something's spotted in the build-up to that, so it may be 2 or 3 passes before there was a foul spotted, how far do we go back? Do we go back one phase of play? Do we go back to 2 phases of play? At the moment, there seems to be a little bit of confusion
I
around
would
that.
agree, but surely that, Mick, that's just about the technology settling in. I mean,
Possibly.
I think the reality is in 2 years' time, we won't be talking about it. It'll be like it's been there
It's a
forever.
bit of
Possibly.
fine tuning, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
fine tuning, I guess.
The
They've
third
probably
point,
got it right.
the third point I'd make, Dave, is the fact that the fans, that there's got to be a way of getting things across to let the supporters know what's happening, because
Yeah.
at the moment you've got somebody celebrating a goal or whatever, and then it's I'm not celebrating the goal, and then there's, I mean, you mentioned the Tottenham game, Josh. I mean, how many minutes were added in that first half?
Well, on top of extra time that was added at the end, there was a good,
It was a lot.
15 minutes.
It was a
at
lot,
least
and
of,
that can't be right, can it? At the end of the day, so I think at the moment, you can call it teething problems, call it what you like. At the moment, they've not got it right. I agree with goal line technology. I think that was an absolute necessity. I think with this at the moment, and you actually made the point yourself, Dave, that you said that sometimes you will have situations where you might have Alan Shearer and Danny Murphy sitting on one side on Match of the Day, and then Lineker and somebody else saying one thing and they disagree.
Yeah.
So VAR actually in those situations might clear nothing up at all. So I think there's got to be, if they're going to go ahead with it, I'm not saying they shouldn't, I'm agreeing with what Julian said early on, that at the moment it's a little bit chaotic and it's clearly at the moment it's not quite working.
But people need to know what they're going to do it for,
Yeah.
or what situation.
There is some
It might help.
clarification.
And showing it on the screen, that could be interesting as well. In certain
Well, that could go
stadiums.
one or two ways, couldn't it?
You could show it at cricket, nobody bats an eyelid at the cricket, do they? Football?
But I think the reality is you're only going to be able to refine it in that live situation.
Yeah, possibly.
You're never going to simulate a lot of the day-to-day activities you see in a match.
The proof will be in the pudding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And I presume we'll be getting it for Carlton, mate. Or goal line technology at least.
Quite frankly, without being a pessimist, I'm not sure any of us will be around by
That's
the
the
time.
next one. Let's forget about the car park, let's get the technology.
So, on to our final crouch question, and before we delve into it, I'd like to congratulate Phil Neville for 2 fantastic games at the start of England Women's setup. Could develop into a big fan of the show, who knows? But the England men's team, we talk about the use of VAR in the World Cup. The World Cup's coming up, and England have had an interesting campaign, to say the least. Southgate taking over and bringing in some incredible youth players who, you know, many were used to seeing the same names in the picture for a while. We've got 2 big friendlies coming up. We've got the Netherlands, Koeman, obviously Everton manager, just been appointed, and Italy, who are managerless at the minute, but are actually eyeing up Conte to come back to them. Those 2 friendlies, we always seem to do well in friendlies against those stature of clubs. How do you see us getting on? And not only that, with this new influx of youth players, who has to be on that plane when we head to the World Cup.
I've become a little bit disillusioned with England over the years. I've took my lad a few times to play at Wembley, but I probably should show a little bit more interest in the England team, but I have become a little bit disillusioned with watching international football. It used to be, when I was younger, the lads would get together with an England game on and we'd all go down to the pub and watch it, and I'll definitely be obviously be watching the World Cup, but my interest has waned a little bit because of recent performances. All I would say is at the end of the day is that I think what Gareth needs to do is perhaps get a decent influx of the youth, but obviously try and mix it with some with a little bit of experience. Obviously, if we can keep Harry Kane fit, then we've obviously got a chance. I think the Wrights probably try a different keeper. I think Joe Hart, if he's not even in the West Ham side, then I think you're going to struggle to justify. And also his performances have probably dipped a bit during the previous England game. So I think there's a decision to be made there with the goalkeeper. And I'd be interested to see what the other guys think, and in terms of the actual makeup of the squad. Possibly this time maybe we may do okay because people probably aren't getting too excited about it. In the past, where we had the Gerrard, Lampard, we had that what was called the golden generation, it never happened, and maybe this time because perhaps the ambition or the prospects aren't as exaggerated, then maybe, who knows, maybe we'll do better than anybody expects us to, and maybe one or two of these young players, but I'd be interested to see who you guys think we should take on the plane, because
it's interesting, because I was just thinking as you were giving your answer, Mick, because it pretty much replicates what I'm about to say, and I just wonder actually whether one of the things we need to think about is the age profile of the panel, because maybe you get a consensus of disillusionment, because certainly from my point of view I'm in exactly the same boat. When I was younger I was a passionate England fan. I think where I find myself now is I've become very, very disillusioned. I'm far more interested in following my club. I'm far more interested in following local football in the East Midlands. I'm far more interested to see what's happening in our, Carlton Town League than I am in the national team, which to some extent is quite sad.
Yeah.
But you do become disillusioned. Josh, I think it's difficult to tell how we'll do in those two friendly matches, because it depends whether he uses those as experimental matches to test formations or to test players, or whether he treats it as a normal football match with what he pretty much thinks is going to be his starting 11.
Going with the youth I think is the right way forward, even if it means us making an early exit, because then we've got the next tournament, because nothing could be as bad as the last tournament in Brazil where we were abject, weren't we?
But of course the difficulty is you then get caught in this debate though, so you say, right, so let's go with the youth, and you probably have the likes of a Kane in there who'd be perceived as being one of the more experienced players in the English squad now. Yeah. I wouldn't take Hart and have him in goal, because I think he's yesterday's man. He's not getting football wherever he goes now. I feel sorry for him to some degree because of what happened to him when he was pushed out from City, but nevertheless I think he's yesterday's man. I think he should try and build a squad with primarily a young team who've got the energy. But it's interesting because I was reading an article in the Telegraph about who they think should be on the plane, and they're already talking about, which we inevitably hear when England aren't playing so well, about winter break, about players being tired before they've got to the World Cup.
Excuses in early.
And there's already talk about the disparity in, say strikers. You've got Harry Kane, who they're already saying is in the red zone because of the amount of football he's played, and Dele Alli to a lesser degree. And then at the other end of the extreme, they're already having concerns about the likes of Rashford, who they think should be on the plane.
Who's not played very much.
But actually he's hardly played at all. And there's a debate about whether Jesse Lingard goes at all. And yet I think Jesse Lingard's a great player.
He puts the ball in the back of the net, doesn't he?
But he just isn't getting the football. And I think that's the other disparity. It's not just about, is it senior or is it, young talent with energy, and how do you get that balance? But it's also now then looking at what's become quite an international Premier League, and therefore where are the English players coming from, and how many of them are actually getting
there's only about
match
30%
football?
I think of English players. The others I always notice in the World Cup though, you get quite a lot of Premier League players, they don't seem to play that badly in the World Cup, do they? So whether this great thing, I don't know. Aguero will have a good World Cup, won't he?
It's a good point.
And then Kane suddenly won't score because he's too tired. Well, Aguero surely will be just too tired.
That's a good point.
And in terms of a Premier League break, when do you have it? I also think we've got the high expectation in this country. You know, the papers seem to build it up. This crescendo of we're going to win the World Cup. And then they're the first to moan about it when we don't perform very well.
Just look at the summer's youth tournaments. It looks like we're moving the right way because the three winners of all those tournaments were Spain, Germany and England across all of the under 23 right down to under 17s tournaments.
I went to watch the under 17s just after they come back at Rotherham and they passed the football superbly.
That would be a concern for me, that these players, as I say, the fact that there are so many international players coming in, they're not actually getting the time.
Having watched them play, they're very technically gifted. They just need a break, maybe even playing for a championship club and working your way up. I don't know, but
absolutely.
You know, Bamford's come back, got his first hat-trick ever. But how long has he been around?
He's been around a while, and that's
what, 22, 23 now?
How would he have developed if he'd have stayed at Forest, or if he'd have gone on to perhaps a club lower in and played regularly? I don't know.
Wales dealt into the Championship, and look where they ended up in the Euros.
And Northern Ireland again. They've not got many.
Yeah, well, they've got a striker playing in League One at the minute, and he's on fire, I believe.
Good link.
But I just hope that he plays. Just coming back to the point, Josh, I just hope that the manager plays the team, not the exact team, but he plays nearly the team. What concerns me where they use these friendlies is totally experimental.
So to draw a line under that topic, boys, and I know we're a way off, predictions for the World Cup? England finish where? When do we go out, or win?
I think they'll get through the group stage, and I think that look, they may surprise us, and maybe I'm being optimistic here because, and again, it can't be much worse than it was in the last sort of chapter. But I think they'll get through the group stage, and I think they may win a quarter final. I think they may get to the semis, but maybe I'm just being English and optimistic. I've got really absolutely no idea, if I'm honest.
Well, I'm going to be optimistic.
You're going to say we're going to win it?
Oh no, not that. I think we might get to the quarterfinals.
I agree.
I think that's about the best. You know, top 8.
If you look at the groups, and I really can't remember which teams it would be. I tried to follow it through at the weekend, and I have no doubt we'll get through the group stage to the quarters, but I don't think we'll get past. I think we may get into the semis, but we definitely won't get any further than that. We come up against Germany, and I can't remember who the other team is.
Who knows? Harry Kane might blast us to glory. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, occasionally you can beat them 5-1.
I think we're due to beat somebody on penalties, Josh.
And like you said, Rashford will be fresh.
And it may well be that in 6 months' time we might want to edit this section of the programme and sound a lot more optimistic. Do you know, Mick, if you remember, I told you that England would win, and I remember Julian agreeing with me.
So just to do the re-recording, so England have just won the World Cup. So that, I believe, draws us to a close, and thank you for watching. If you've got any feedback at the end of this, it'd be very much appreciated, because it is a pilot run. We've all sat, had a natter and drank a pint, and as for your own, cheers.